Yes, this means that there's zero chance for the collapse of the regime, and B, the collapse of the command and control of the Iranian military. Because, as you rightly pointed out, the Iranians have for now more than 20 years been preparing for this very war, a war against the United States, one which they anticipated. The regime being targeted, command and control being decapitated, um, and therefore they prepared themselves to fight 31 different wars with 31 autonomous military districts, each one of which is capable of continuing the conflict on their own volition. And so the United States, aren't seeking to defeat a single enemy. We have to defeat 31 autonomous military districts, none of which will surrender. But complicating that is the fact that we haven't succeeded in decapitating the Iranian regime. The Iranian government is functioning to the full effect. The Iranian government has lost no control whatsoever over the nation of Iran. They have the full support of the Iranian people. And we can go around and try and assassinate names, but you can't assassinate the position. And because Iran is a functioning constitutional democracy, they have resilience built into the Constitution, lines of succession that will kick in, and new names will come in, but the position will be the same. And as long as the Iranian government is intact, regime change was a fantasy. It is not going to happen. And getting the Iranians to collapse militarily was a fantasy. That's not going to happen. This is one of the reasons why here we are 18 days into this conflict, and the United States, supposed to be the most powerful nation on the planet, is getting badly defeated by Iran.
Yeah, we're 18 days into this war, Scott, and the conflict appears to be expanding across multiple fronts: Iran, Israel, Lebanon, and the wider region. So I guess it's very clear to say that this war isn't going according to plan, as you're saying, as you just stated.
That assumes that there was a plan to begin with. I mean, we're giving the United States a lot of credit there because the American plan, the Israeli plan, has changed on a continuous basis as this war went. I think there was what we could call a plan, which is more like a hope and a dream of regime change, of killing Ali Khamenei and causing the regime to collapse, the people to rise up. And then all these other problems will go away because there would be a new government. We wouldn't have to worry about closure of the Strait of Hormuz. We wouldn't have to worry about expansion of the conflict into Lebanon, into Yemen, into Iraq. We wouldn't have to worry about ballistic missiles striking Israel or American bases because all of this would have been resolved by the collapse of the Iranian regime. But the regime is not collapsing. And as a result, there's only one side in this conflict that has a plan, and that's Iran. And as we said, this is a plan that's more than 20 years in the making, a plan that's been developed by closely watching the United States and how the United States operates, communicates, fights, and adapting accordingly. The Iranians have not changed their plan. Their plan is the same plan they had when the war started. The United States has changed its plan constantly. Today alone, we're going to see 2 or 3 different plans come out. No, we don't understand the scope and scale of the problem, and we are confronted with the reality that even though we can make buildings go boom, we're not achieving the political results that we're suffering political harm, economic harm, not so much military harm. You know, we're not seeing a large number of American military deaths. That's actually because the Iranians aren't trying to kill Americans. The Iranians are just trying to destroy American capacity, capability, and to engender confusion amongst the American leadership. And they've been very successful across the board.
I wanted to run something by you, and I hope you don't consider it a stupid realization, but be kind on me. I would say that there's one man who has quietly become the most important geopolitical broker possibly in the world right now. China wants discounted oil from him. India wants even more crude from him. Europe wants emergency gas supplies from him. And Iran uses his intelligence and strategic coordination. That man would be Vladimir Putin, Does that assessment hold up?
It's actually a very astute observation, and the assessment is standing the test of time. What I would say is that this is not a plan of Russia, because when I speak to Russian diplomats, they are not fans of chaos. They are not fans of conflict. They want peace and stability. They want predictability. But one thing that we've learned about the Russians is that they don't close doors. They leave, once you engage with them, they leave the door open. It doesn't mean that they're walking through that door, but it means they're leaving the door open. For instance, with the United States, the door of Witkoff, Steve Witkoff, even though it was discredited because of what he did with Iran, and he's been called out by the Russians, that door is open. And earlier this week, late last week, I think he met with Kirill Dmitriev, the Putin's envoy, special envoy for meetings of this nature. They're talking about what? They're talking about how to find an off-ramp, how Russia can help Donald Trump get out of this mess. It's in Russia's interest not to make Trump look good, but to create stability. Stability is the thing the Russians want most. But the other thing is that the Russians, for instance, they never shut down the surviving Nord Stream pipeline, despite the fact that Germany said, we're not going to do this. Europe said, we're not going to do this. That we're not going to. They never shut it down. Why? You leave doors open.
Yeah.
The Russians have shut no doors. And now what's happened is, as the world falls apart, the only nation that has solutions is the nation that kept all doors open. And now people are going to Russia saying, we need help with this, we need help with that. Donald Trump needed help with getting oil to market in a diminished oil supply because of the Straits of Hormuz. Russia has that oil because of the fact that the door had been kept open. And Russia had every right to shut the door. I mean, the United States lied to them. The United States tried to kill Vladimir Putin with a Ukrainian drone attack. These are all things that people, normal people would say, shut the door. And many people criticize Vladimir Putin for keeping the door open. I think the wisdom of Vladimir Putin's decision not to shut the door, with that oil decision alone resolves a whole host of economic issues that Vladimir Putin was struggling with. And now he's central to bringing an end to a conflict where Russia will get what it wants. Iran will become part of BRICS, a functioning part of BRICS. Sanctions will be lifted against Iran, so Iran can be a fully functioning member of BRICS. Russia will be able to complete the north-south economic corridor linking St. Petersburg with Chabahar. China will be able to link the, get the western or get the new Silk Road up and running. We watch India and the Gulf Arab states and Israel, brag about their India, Middle East, European economic corridor. That will never happen. But all the things that Russia and China want will happen, because Russia and China aren't the ones going around kicking hornets' nests and then crying when you get stung. Their job is to avoid hornets' nests, find paths of the most productive, mutually beneficial paths, and stick to that. So the maturity of the Russian foreign policy is playing out as we speak.
So, Scott, Japan, Australia, and several European allies have declined Washington's request to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that so many Western allies are reluctant to join this war simply out of political hesitation, or when countries only have a handful of major warships, is the risk of losing one in a modern missile battlefield simply just too high?
Well, first of all, there was a way to do this, that they didn't do it. Australia could have sent their ships and simply said, we will go where you lead us. If you want us to go to the Strait of Hormuz, we will join any American-led flotilla. If the American destroyer is leading the way, Mr. President, Australia will be there right beside you every step of the way. And the president will say, well, that's not what I want. I want you to go by yourself. And the answer, oh, no, Mr. President. Team effort. They could have done that, but they didn't. Why? Because Australia is on the verge of absolute energy collapse right now. They're out of energy. Even if the Strait of Hormuz opened up today and they started producing the energy that would flow, would get to Australia too late. There is an energy emergency in Australia. Australia needs to be able to pick up the phone and talk not to the United States, but to the Iranians and say, we need that tanker to come through. What do we need to do to get that tanker through? You see, Iran's in control right now. Iran is the one calling the shots. If you want to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, you got to call Iran. That's why Europe is calling Iran right now and saying, hey, we really, really need this tanker to go through. And the Iranians go, all right, but you're going to pay not in dollars, you're going to pay in a different currency.
Yeah.
The Europeans, oh, yes, we'll do that all you want. See, Iran is calling the shots because Iran has the world where they need them. And Donald Trump is looking at a failed policy. I mean, the man says, nobody told me that the Strait of Hormuz would be shut. Well, he even went further than that. He gave a ridiculous speech where he said, we have won this war decisively. We have won this war. The war is over. And isn't it just a little rude of the Iranians to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed? Why would they do that? Why would they keep the Strait of Hormuz? They've lost this war. Why would they? It shows the president isn't aware of any reality whatsoever. The Iranians are controlling the flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz because that's one of the things that helps them win this war. They have created a decisive split now between the United States and people who would normally have been aligned with the United States. But nobody in the world except Israel supports this war. Everybody realizes this was a war of choice, and most people realize that it was an illegal war of aggression, initiated without any legitimacy whatsoever under international law. So nobody wants to be a party to this conflict. And there's a silver lining behind every cloud because this will perhaps of NATO. Donald Trump is so vindictive and so angry right now at NATO for failing to rally to support his pet project, this war with Iran, that there's a real likelihood in the coming days that the United States will begin precipitously withdrawing its support for the Ukraine conflict and starting to withdraw physically troops from Europe. And, in the past, Congress would have said no. Normally, if the president sought to precipitously withdraw American forces from Europe, Congress would say you can. In fact, Congress has passed legislation that prohibits the president from withdrawing troops from NATO without congressional authority. But right now, Congress is angry at Europe. They feel that Europe has abandoned an American ally and American president. And so I don't think there's too much sympathy in Congress amongst the Trump supporters to sit there and say, no, Mr. President, we oppose. I think NATO is in the greatest risk of collapsing at any time in its history. And this could happen in weeks, not months.
So does this also coincide or does it add up also to the fact that the U.S. has moved parts of its THAAD missile defense system and Patriot interceptors from South Korea to the Middle East to support the operations against Iran? How should people read that move, Scott? And does shifting those systems potentially leave South Korea exposed to North Korea?
Well, that's an interesting question. Most people don't understand the context of why the THAAD missiles were in South Korea to begin with. The United States imposed these missiles on South Korea, who were reluctant to accept them. We said that we needed to beef up our ballistic missile defense capability in South Korea to protect our resources in South Korea and China from North Korean ballistic missile threats. The Chinese at the time screamed bloody murder and said, when you put a THAAD, it threatens all of our defense capabilities, and we will have to respond accordingly. And the United States said, we don't care. We're doing this. This is how important it is with us. And so we put these THAAD systems in. We brought in more Patriot systems, and we built a missile defense shield for South Korea and Japan that we said, you guys are safe now. Papa America's there. We got you guys. Daddy's home, and you can sleep easy at night. We got you. The Chinese bad guys and the North Korean bad guys. Don't worry about it. We're here, and then we're not. Without even asking permission, we just went and withdrew the THAAD systems, the Patriot systems. South Korea and Japan today have no ballistic missile defense system where the United States is involved. They are literally naked to the world. The Japanese have some indigenous capability that the South Koreans do, but nothing that matched what we brought to bear. But it doesn't matter, because one thing that the Israeli conflict has shown is that the most advanced integrated ballistic missile defense shield in the world, the one that exists over Israel, doesn't work against modern missiles. And both China and North Korea have modern missiles. So there's no missile defense shield. But what the United States has done now is told the South Koreans and the Japanese that you're not as important to us as Israel. And we've also told, by doing this, we've told our allies in the Gulf Arab states who were doing the same thing. Remember, while we were building a missile defense shield over South Korea and Japan, we're doing the same thing in the Middle East. We were telling our Gulf Arab allies, don't worry, Daddy's here. Daddy's got you. You're safe. Sleep easy tonight. Daddy's got the watch. We got you covered with this great missile defense shield. And this missile defense shield doesn't work. They blow through all their interceptors. And hey, Daddy, we need some more toys. And Daddy says, no, I'm helping my favorite son over here, Israel. And only Israel is getting the assistance. So we've betrayed the South Koreans. We've betrayed the Japanese, all on behalf of Israel, which is the nation that convinced us to start this war to begin with.
I want to go to Lebanon. You do know it's my fatherland, and I want to discuss Lebanon. There was a U.S.-French brokered ceasefire back in November 24. According to Amnesty International, the Israeli operations, which never ceased, including missile strikes, fighter jet attacks, and the use of white phosphorus, which is inconsistent with accepted laws of war, since it's a chemical weapon that causes severe burns and destroys farmland and livelihoods. They never ceased. And those cost the lives of hundreds of Lebanese civilians up until March 1st, 2026. At the same time, though, but after March 1st, the conditions changed. We're going to go to that. But at the same time, Hezbollah's, the other part of the agreement, which was the government forces, the army, the Lebanese army, disarming Hezbollah, well, they never kept up to their end of the bargain. I'm now saying both sides of what's out there. Scott, could you please explain in brief to our largely Western audience why the idea of disarming Hezbollah is widely seen inside Lebanon as a practical, logistical impossibility?
Well, first of all, Hezbollah is a resistance movement, and they resist Israeli occupation of Lebanon. And that's what gives Hezbollah legitimacy. They are a resistant movement grown through when the Israelis invaded and occupied Lebanon, southern Lebanon in particular. Hezbollah grew as a resistance movement, and they successfully defeated the Israelis. They evicted the Israelis from most of southern Lebanon, but the Sheba farms and other areas Israel continued to occupy. And Hezbollah said, as long as you occupy an inch of Lebanese soil, we will resist you. It's the most legitimate resistance movement one can imagine. I mean, I really have a hard time understanding why the Lebanese people don't rally around Hezbollah 100%, because Hezbollah is defending Lebanese soil. Now, the Lebanese people have been sold a bill of goods by the United States, acting at the behest of Israel, that Hezbollah is somehow evil, somehow bad, and should be disarmed. But all the United States is saying is that Lebanon should literally castrate itself, make itself neutered in front of the world community to become helpless, so that Israel can do anything it wants to over Lebanon, fly its airplanes over, cross over Lebanese airspace to bomb Syria, to bomb Iraq, to bomb Iran, to bully Lebanon into border demarcation issues that would cede tens of thousands of square kilometers worth of maritime claim to Israel, underneath which, of course, is considerable gas that can be exploited for a lot of money. Hezbollah is the one that stood up to the Israelis and said, no, we won't accept that line. Hezbollah is the one that told the Israelis they must. Hezbollah did that, and now the Lebanese government is turning on Hezbollah. Well, that didn't work too well. I think it was the army that said, we're not going to disarm Hezbollah. First of all, the army can't disarm Hezbollah. Hezbollah would crush the Lebanese army, but they don't want to crush the Lebanese army. They're brothers. But the Lebanese army is not trained, equipped, or motivated to fight Israel. They don't have the ability. The only force that has the ability to succeed is Hezbollah. And right now, Hezbollah is the Lebanese army defending Lebanon from Israeli aggression. Lebanon is being invaded by the Israelis as we speak. But also as we speak, Lebanese forces are meeting the Israeli invader and defeating the Israeli invader head on in very bloody conflict. It's costing the Israelis a lot of material and a lot of manpower. They're not succeeding the way they want. The ultimate price, because the Israeli Air Force comes in and just one disregard of international law and basic humanitarian norms. They're slaughtering the Lebanese people with the Dahiwa doctrine that was linked to the southern Beirut suburb of the same name, collective punishment. And that's what the Israelis are now doing. They're going to punish the Lebanese people because Hezbollah is defending Lebanese soil from an Israeli invasion. But Hezbollah has no choice because, you remember, they didn't start this conflict. Israel started the conflict by going to war against Iran. And Israel has said the defeat of Iran will lead to the ability to cleanse Lebanon of Hezbollah. If we get Iran to collapse, we will be able to eliminate Hezbollah. So Hezbollah recognizes that as long as Iran is under existential threat, so is Hezbollah. And Hezbollah has no choice but to enter this fight. So Hezbollah and Iran now are linked. This is one conflict. The fighting going on right now in Lebanon is linked to the fighting going on. There's no way to separate the two because if Iran loses, Hezbollah loses. But if Iran wins, it's a victory for Hezbollah. And frankly speaking, it's a victory for Lebanon. Hopefully the Lebanese people will understand at the end of the day who is on the side of Israel and who's on the side of Lebanon. And they'll be able to judge accordingly when the fighting stops.
Well, as of March 1st, Israel issued orders for 53 villages and towns of southern Lebanon to be evacuated. People acted upon those orders. And as we speak, a quarter of the Lebanese population, 1 million people, have been displaced from southern Lebanon and are now refugees in their own country. Most of them moved to Beirut and to the outskirts. They're living out of their cars and in tents. But still, the indiscriminate attacks of Israel has caused the deaths from March 1st until March 15 of 800 civilians, 135 of which are children. One such attack was at the tent encampment on the beach of Ramlet El Baida in Beirut. They indiscriminately just bombed the people in their tents on the beach in Beirut, very similar to what they were doing in Gaza. And in South Lebanon, some villages have not been deserted. Remarkably, a number of them are Christian. And on March 9, Maronite priest Father Pierre El-Rahi was killed in the Christian border village of Klaya in southern Lebanon after an Israeli tank shell struck a home. The residents run to help the inhabitants of the home, the priest along with them, and in a double tap attack, the second strike, it hit the same location, and the priest later died from his wounds along with his co-villagers. So I want to get this thing out. I want to get this information out.
No, it's very important. What you're doing is documenting Israeli war crimes. And people need to understand that Israel, the same Israel that gave us Gaza and the genocide in Gaza, is the Israel operating in Lebanon. There aren't two Israels. There isn't the evil Israel and the just Israeli army moving in to defeat evil Hezbollah. They're the same militaries governed by the same government and the same policies. And we see that Israel only knows one tactic when it comes to interfacing with a sovereign people, and that tactic is murder, straight up murder. And it's tragic Numbers are appalling, to be honest. But I'm going to say something that probably will disturb you, and it should disturb you. We in the West don't care.
You've
No one
told me that in
in
previous
the West is crying.
interviews.
Pardon?
You've told me that in previous interviews. I know you don't care.
Yeah, and
Westerners.
I wish I was wrong. I wish I could say, people have come to me and said, Scott, you're wrong. We care about Lebanon. We care about Lebanon deeply. This pains us that Israel, our ally, is murdering children, murdering women. We lose sleep at night. We call our congressman and said, tell the Israelis to stop murdering the people of Lebanon. I've never been to Lebanon. I love the Lebanese people. I've never been to Lebanon. I wish I could go to Lebanon. I tried a couple times, but circumstances didn't allow. Who knows what the future holds? But I have friends who live in Beirut. I contact them all the time just to touch base. They're scared. I ask them, are you okay? They say, yes, we're okay, but the bombs are getting closer. They're loud. Last night it shook the house. It's their friends and colleagues that are getting killed and wounded and maimed. My heart goes out to them. I've met a lot of Lebanese, and with almost, I say without exception, they are cultured. They are, they are artistic. They are lovely, warm human beings. The last thing you would want in the world is to ever bring harm to a citizen of Lebanon. They are truly almost like innocence, meaning that they have this paradise there, and they live this life, but they've been caught up in this awful history, and it's a history that results in death and destruction being brought down upon them. You gave out those numbers. Normally, those numbers would just get anybody to be sick to their stomach. But the sad thing is, most Americans don't care. They just don't care. These numbers mean nothing to them because they don't identify with Lebanese people as being humans. We've allowed our government, our media, to sell the Lebanese as terrorists or terrorist sympathizers, or even the Christians. The Phalange, they committed crimes. We have the Tigers are running around shooting people, and we never stopped to say, well, why? Why is all this violence happening? Is it the Lebanese causing these problems, or is it us interfering causing these problems? And the answer is it's us interfering. What's happening right now in Lebanon is because of our interference. The Americans coming in trying to impose a solution to achieve an American-oriented result. But Hezbollah represents the people of Lebanon. They're the only organization fighting for Lebanon right now. They're defending Lebanese soil against an aggressor, a very genocidal aggressor. I just wish the American people could reflect, and maybe this defeat in Iran will awaken the need, because I think a lot of people are going to wake up one day and say, how did this happen? How did we allow ourselves to be marched into this war with Iran without asking a single question? And the answer is because we were ignorant, because we didn't take the time to learn about this, because we never truly studied the Iranian people. We allowed prejudice to influence us. And once we have that awakening, then we can apply that same thought process to Lebanon and to other nations where traditionally we denigrate them because their Arabs are, not like us. They're inferior to us somehow because they're always fighting amongst one another. Those Arabs don't know what peace is. Well, they don't know what peace is because we bring war to them all the time. And maybe we'll recognize that we're the problem, they're not the problem, that they might be the solution. We can learn something from them. Who knows? I'm hopeful. But those numbers broke my heart because I know for you, and I watched as you read those numbers,